It's my absolute pleasure today to welcome Judith to this podcast episode to share her story on how well she's done on the Paddison Program, to inspire you and to give you some tips and ideas about what worked for her. Welcome, Judith.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Well, yes, and we were just chatting before we started here how about the different parts of the world that we're in. You're in Montana and it's snowing outside, and here I am in Sydney, Australia at the moment where we're living, and it's a beautiful, hot summer morning. So isn't the world, it's incredible, isn't it? I mean, you never quite get used to the way that the world differs in its geographical locations and how we can connect like this and share stories. It's amazing.
It is amazing. It's a blessing to have this technology.
It really is. And I want to start this episode a little different. I want to start by reading something out that you posted inside Paddison Program support. And this is what captured our attention, myself and other members, and we were like, whoa, look how far Judith has come, because you've been a silent operator. You've been doing things on your own, and then you've come in and you've said, here's my 6 months update, and you've blown us all away. Now, your 6-month update was very comprehensive. So I'm just going to read out the first paragraph of this because I think it'll really set the scene as to the amount of turmoil that this disease was causing you, the emotional ups and downs, obviously the physical pain. So let's just hear what you wrote here, and then we'll get from you to elaborate more on this part of your life when you were going through this. So here we go. So you've written November 28th, and that's 2018. So November 28th marks 6 months of following the Paddison Program. It overwhelms me with gratitude when I think about how far I've come. Earlier this morning, with my husband out of town and my 2 sons asleep, I unloaded the dishwasher. I reached to put 2 mugs up on the shelf, and then I started weeping. It sounds like such a simple thing to unload the dishwasher, but it wasn't simple for me when I started the program. Pain forced me out of bed every night after just 3 to 5 hours of sleep, with excruciating pain up and down my spine, between my shoulders, in one or both of my SI joints, wrapping around and constricting my ribs. Goodness. The spasming and constriction caused pain I have no words to describe. It is wretched to be in so much pain and not be able to move a centimetre, not even breathe, without triggering more pain. The worst is what I call the crying cascade, where I would cry involuntarily from sudden pain, such as sneezing, coughing, or reaching to put away a mug. And the muscle movement from crying caused more and more pain. So this morning, when it struck me that I was happily, effortlessly, painlessly emptying the dishwasher, I couldn't help but cry. I cried from the memory of the pain compared to the perfect ease I felt today. I cried because I was so grateful to the people who've helped me, and I cried because now my kids get a mum who is not diminished by constant pain. What a gift. Well, what a post, and that was just paragraph number 1. You really have a way with words. Goodness, I mean, you really were in a very, very bad way from what you've described there. I mean, can you talk about what life was like when you were experiencing all that?
Well, sure. It started a long time ago. So this began when I think my oldest son was still in the womb. I was pregnant with him 9 years ago.
Right.
So,
So you think you got the diagnosis whilst you were pregnant?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I got the beginning of symptoms when I was pregnant.
Right.
The pain began when I was.
I see. Yeah, the back pain. Yep.
The back pain and SI joint pain as well. I wasn't able to vacuum. I remember when that back pain just was taking over my life for years and years and years. And no one could quite figure it out. I went to see many different people, but it was quite a mystery. I was able to get some relief with a physical therapist who was amazing and specializes in manual adjustments of the spine. And I was doing a lot of like training for a half marathon and lifting weights. So I was able to get the back pain under control for a couple of years when my son was probably age 2 to 5. And then about 2 years ago, I had a really horrible ear infection. And I went a series repeated of antibiotics.
Oh my gosh. Here we go again. That word antibiotics just, it's just the most.
I knew then what I know now.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. So I can see where this is going. Mm-hmm.
Of course you can. It set it off. It all came back and worse. And then I started getting eye infections. And so eye infections were very painful. If you've ever had one or know someone who does, all of the symptoms have pain as the common denominator. But I was getting iritis very frequently. I had it about 5 times in 2 years. And so my eye doctor was the one who figured it out. He had me tested for all sorts of things because he was concerned that there might be an underlying cause to having iritis so many times. And he was right. Well, at the time, it came back that the only thing that was worth noting was that I had that HLA B27 gene, which can be associated with ankylosing spondylitis. So my doctor had me write it down, and so that's really how we unlocked the mystery, was from my eye doctor.
So we do see this, and in fact, another member who has been talking about this at the moment, a relationship between he has also, yes, ankylosing spondylitis, and he's seeing this uveitis. Now, was that different to what you were experiencing? Because uveitis is an autoimmune of the eyes, but the iritis you've mentioned, do you think it was that?
I am not sure. We should ask an expert. I almost wonder if it's one and the same, but so I'm not sure, because uveitis sounds very, very familiar.
Right. Yes. Okay. Well, the solution for that, and I'm not the expert in this, never had this, and it's rare as well. So I've not sort of worked with many folks with it. But often drops are put into the eye, anti-inflammatory drops, prednisone even into the eye to calm it all down. Was that your treatment?
Yes, prednisone drops, and it would take about a month because you'd have to taper it down each week. So it would be 4 drops a day, then down. And I was doing that about every other month. So
I think that we're talking the same thing. So it sounds autoimmune-ish. It sounds, yes, related to ankylosing spondylitis, related. So it's another target of the body that's being attacked. Okay. Well, obviously that's awful. And at that point, did you still have the ongoing back pain, or was that still under control?
No. So the back pain was awful. The eye infections were awful. And I also had this moving pain that I'd had for many years that sometimes was in a shoulder, sometimes was plantar fasciitis, sometimes was in my neck. So it just kind of moved around. So I had that as well. And so it was a really hard couple of years.
Now, you mentioned before when your son was 2 or 3 years old that the back pain was the biggest problem. Give us a bit of an idea of the time frame here. Over how long of a time period did these problems play out? And then at what point did you start getting medical help with drugs and things? And let us hear about that.
Yeah. So the first part of your question, how did it play out? So the back pain started when I was pregnant and lasted till he was about 2, and then it came back the last 2 years. So that's been about a total of 4 years every single night, relentless. 2 years kind of at the beginning, and 2 years most recently, every single night. And so you can imagine getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night. You are exhausted. So I was tired all the time. I had 2 little kids. My husband travels for work all the time. So I just was in over my head. It was so hard, but I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know it was all related. And because I'd kind of gotten the back pain under control a little bit before, I thought I could do it again. But throughout, I was regularly seeing a team of wonderful medical professionals, my physical therapist, a family doctor, who was a naturopathic doctor, an acupuncturist who's amazing. And then finally, and my eye doctor. And so after my eye doctor had said that, I kind of brushed it off at the beginning, Clint. I didn't take it too seriously. And then when I was traveling a few months later, I was in Portugal with two of my dear friends, and we were having so much fun, but I was in so much pain. And I came back, was eating bread and drinking wine and cheese. So I was just in excruciating pain one night, and I was lying there kind of trapped in a prison of pain where you can't move. And I remembered what my eye doctor had said. And I thought, oh, please don't be what he said. And I Googled it, of course, which you shouldn't do, but I did. And I saw so many uncanny symptoms that I'd been experiencing all together in one place. And so I was good about holding off on drawing conclusions. My friends were incredibly sweet and supportive, and we all just said, well, wait and see. And then I saw my family doctor right when I got back from that. This was just in April. And
wow.
She was amazing. She was so great. Immediately, she had me in the next day, getting blood work, getting x-rays, and going over my symptoms, which I had seen her for, but we just hadn't put it together. And so once the full picture was clear, she immediately fast-tracked me to a rheumatologist. And so within a few weeks, I was in to see the rheumatologist, and I had an MRI before I went, so could see the inflammation in my SI joints.
Good doctor.
And then it was
yeah.
good
You went in there full of the information that the rheumatologist was going to need. Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. Great doc. Okay. Now, at this point, a lot of people never think about the sacroiliac joint unless it becomes inflamed. Can you describe exactly where it is, or as best as you can describe where it is, and how it impacts your body when it is inflamed? For the non dialed in, person, yeah?
Before I knew, I would always say I have hip pain.
Yep.
But really, I would say it's actually right in the middle of your buttock. It's kind of where the right kind of in your butt.
Right.
where your leg is attached. And so just feel it. It kind of will be one side is worse than the other, or sometimes both. And it becomes very painful to bear any weight. So walking, taking a full stride is so hard. You're just kind of bracing yourself for each step. And then with kids, how do you pick up your kid? So, because I can't bear my own weight, I can't bear a 3-year-old's weight or a 5-year-old's weight. So
absolutely.
It was tough. Oh my gosh. Because the nighttime pain, I wasn't sleeping. The daytime pain, I could barely walk sometimes or not walk at all. So
yeah. Shocking. Okay. So you walked or did your best to get into the rheumatologist's appointment, and you sat down. Tell us about that how that went.
Oh, well, she's wonderful, and immediately started telling me the range of pharmaceutical options that are available to me given my symptoms. And the one she was kind of wanting me to go on was Humira.
Wow, straight away onto Humira.
That she had Humira, and methotrexate was kind of an option as well.
Yeah, right.
But then just talking about my health history, it didn't sound good to her.
Yes.
So she ended up giving me a prescription for an NSAID that had a 12-hour release. It was called Etidolac, I think. Etidolac.
Okay.
And so she gave me that so I could sleep at night, at 12 hours. But she also said that this is not a long-term solution. This will inevitably harm your liver and your stomach. we have to keep testing you. This is not going to solve your problem. And so I left her office totally demoralized. Like, what am I going to do? I have a disease, like she says, it's just getting worse. It's just going to get worse. And I have no way to address this challenge. Like, what am I going to do? And I was so sad, but I remembered seeing that podcast title that you had done with Cherie years ago, I guess, or quite a while ago.
Yes, it was.
And I hadn't watched the video. I had just seen the title, but I remembered it. And I thought I should go back and watch that. And I am so glad I did, because I watched the video and I started the program right away. So I have to say thank you to Cherie. Wherever she is, you have changed my life. I really don't think I would have thought to go on a program for rheumatoid arthritis. I don't know if I would have put that together. So to Cherie, I am forever grateful.
Well, I'll make sure once this comes out, I send a link directly to her and make sure she watches this. Yes, her story was fantastic. And I have another ankylosing spondylitis client who hasn't come on the podcast, and I so want her to come onto the podcast because her story and her recovery is fantastic. But, not everyone wants to come on and share their story. In fact,
I wouldn't have done this willingly, but because Cherie did it, I thought, you know what? This is something that I have to do.
Well, thank you. And this is exactly the importance of doing this, because some person can change the lives of many other people. Yes, there is another case that is extraordinary, but whatever, maybe one day she'll want to share her story. But anyway, so you've started the program. Walk us through it, warts and all, challenges. Tell us how quickly you saw improvements. I want to hear like your experience.
Oh, it was hard. Of course, everything is a little bit overwhelming at first, but I saw pain reduction really quickly. Within just a few weeks, it was going down and down and down. And then when I stopped taking fish oil supplements, it went down a little bit further. And so I was just really feeling good about how each day it was just getting less and less. So I stayed with the baseline foods, those first 12-day plus foods. I stayed with those foods mostly for almost 3 months, three months or so. And that worked really well for me to go slowly like that. I was just continuing to bring the pain levels down and down and down. And then at about between 3 and 4 months is when I just could feel it. I could feel I am doing great. I'm ready to add foods. And so I started adding foods slowly, and was able to add everything from that relatively safe category and then going on to moderately advanced?
Yeah.
Almost all of those foods I've been.
That is so fantastic.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. The notable exceptions were tamari sauce, bell peppers, and tomatoes.
How about that?
I know.
Just as random as it might be, everyone has these little things, and this is why there's no exact dietary blueprint for every person. We have to go through the process. I mean, your combination, those three, I mean, how random are those three? They're not linked by any particular family of vegetable. Yeah. Wow.
Everything else was, I was able to add a wide variety of vegetables and fruits back. And so, yeah, now I just am feeling so much better. I would say after maybe 3 or 4 months, I was at least 80% less pain. And now I'm at 7 months? I would say I am over 90% pain reduction. Like we'll say 93% less pain.
93%. Isn't that fantastic? Now, well done. What a life-changing experience. Absolutely fantastic. How much did you emphasize the green drinks or green smoothies or supplements or these things that other people are going to be wondering?
Green juice. And I can't be more emphatic about when I dialed in, drinking green juice every day. So celery juice first thing in the morning. I do a cucumber juice in the afternoon. That was a huge help. I could see it in the pain numbers. That helped. So I do that every day now. I still drink at least one green juice a day. I thought that was incredibly important. The other really important thing, other than the diet, all leafy greens and vegetables were so important, but was exercise. And I'm guessing that's a really common theme for many of the people who are on the program. But for me, cardio has been absolutely critical. So waking up, having an exercise bike downstairs, I can jump on, get some quick 30 to 45 minutes of cardio, and then I have no pain. My pain is gone after that. And then I often am going to Bikram yoga, usually about 3 or 4 times a week. And I would have never done Bikram yoga. I like yoga, but I would never have done it. So now I really appreciate it. It's not easy, but it is beneficial.
Wow, that is, you know what? Like I mentioned before about a guest who I know very, very well. I say a guest, another person who I worked with her very closely in a one-on-one capacity over 6 months. And so that's, and what we got her to do also with ankylosing spondylitis, Bikram yoga, and she was swimming. She liked swimming. So we did swimming, Bikram, all the time. I mean, she became like a superstar exerciser. And you are the same. You get up, you're on the bike. So good for the hips, right? So good for those, you know, for the area that you're affected. And same with swimming. You've got that scissor motion with your hips. Again, forcing that blood flow, all that movement through the hip area. So swimming, cycling, absolutely sensational for the sacroiliac area, joint area. And then you've got the cardiovascular pain reduction aspect, as well as the studies show that by doing exercise, it improves the microbiome. So there's a direct link from exercise to gut bacteria. And so helpful in conjunction with the foods. And of course, that is the program. The program isn't a diet. It's all of these changes. It's all of this stuff. So
I have done it all. I have been incredibly compliant. And I heard you describe it as threading the eye of a needle. And that is exactly what it is. Like there's no room for messing around. You do what's on the page. And I have gone off script twice. One with the same result. Once was, both were for wine. One was at a friend's wedding with a glass of rosé, and the other was more recently on Halloween. And it was a delayed reaction. It probably came on 48 hours, but then I was in incredibly high pain for 4 or 5 days.
Wow. So the reaction was significant.
It was significant. So I will not be doing that again. Not anytime soon. I've learned my lesson. They're going off script. So I think being totally compliant is a huge reason why I've been successful, and because I have such a supportive family. I think that's the other reason why I've been so successful. My husband is the absolute best, and my parents, Ann and Mel, are amazing and encouraging and helpful, and my siblings have all been incredible. My one sister flew out to Montana twice. Jennifer flew out to Montana to help me take care of my kids while my husband was out of town. They have been so amazing. So that is a huge reason why. That's a strategy for success. Recruit all the support you can get.
Absolutely. Wow, that is fantastic. So do they get a buzz out of seeing how far you've come? I mean, are they just blown away?
Blown away and so happy. Oh my gosh. Because everyone just was so sad when you hear this diagnosis. And then to kind of see it turn around has been awesome for everybody. So,
can you give me some examples? I mean, like Christmas is coming up as we're recording this. It's Christmas Eve here in Sydney. I mean, you're obviously probably going to have a bit of a get together, and there's going to be a social gathering. Your health is obviously going to come up in conversation at some point. I mean, what's the vibe at the moment? There must be such joy in the family about where you're at.
There is so much joy in my family. not only my extended family, I'm the youngest of 5 siblings. And so we're so tight. So just among us, you should see the text chains even when I told them I was coming on the Paddison podcast, they just are so supportive. I'm trying to think of good specific examples. Just honestly, the most important examples for me are with my kids. So they have a full present mom. So that's the main thing that will come up, is that I'm able to really be present for them and not be in my head thinking about how much I need to sit down, or, oof, man, this hurts. So that's a huge thing. And at Christmas this year, we're actually not traveling for the first year ever. And so we'll be with like-minded friends who are and I host at my house, which makes things a lot easier. So I can have an array of foods that I can eat, and then be with friends who are just rooting for me every step of the way.
Oh, it's so good to have the event, Christmas dinner, whatever, at your house is definitely the way to go, because you're in control. As soon as you step out and you're in someone else's environment, it creates anxiety. It means you're very vulnerable to having to snack on something that you know is not right, but you're getting hungry and there's a social pressure. Come on, have this, have that, try this, try that. And you don't know what's in the food, if it's oily. It's very, very challenging. So very wise having it at home. Looks like you've got a lovely kitchen from the background that I can see there. Looks like you're going to make a nice place for hosting. So yeah, definitely another smart move. And you mentioned before about being present with the kids. I've described it to Melissa in the past. When you're in pain, there's something not right in your body. And, for me, the feeling's like having a radio station that's always on, and you are always distracted by this thing that's in the background, the whatever it might be, whatever joint is hurting, or something's just a bit off. And yes, you're there. Yes, you're listening. Yes, you're participating, but that radio station never stops. And it's and shutting that thing off, or getting rid of 93% of its existence is pretty amazing.
Oh, it's amazing. And even just getting to go do fun things with my family, just the ability to go for a hike is changed completely. I mean, just everything is better.
Tell us about any other tips and so forth that you've learned. You mentioned I've picked up 3 things that, oh gosh, you've done a lot of things that are really need highlighting. First of all, massive compliance with the food and exercise, remembering that is kind of 90% of the program is the food and exercise. Everything else is just, a little bit of an assistance, but you've got the food and exercise absolutely dialed in, and you've got the best exercise. You're doing Bikram, which is the most anti-inflammatory, and you've got the exercise bike. Do you know that those 2 things, exercise bike and Bikram, have always been my 2 staples? The bike got my knee problem, helped me recover from the worst periods of my knee problems. Bikram's always been there for me for anti-inflammatory. So that's my little personal combo that you now use as yours, which is wonderful. And then you also mentioned the green juices. Again, that was something that I kind of discovered in a way, just combinations. I'm like, this thing kicks ass. Like, I was like, this is unbelievable. And so I just kept drinking that celery and cucumber juice. And we constantly keep hearing that feedback, is that, yeah, it really helps. And so you've emphasized that as well. The support aspect, I keep talking about it all the time. The support, it's your number one influencing factor to success. And so you've just got that in droves. Obviously, a wonderful supportive family around you, and what a blessing to have that. So yeah, is there anything that I've missed that you think also needs to be shared that really you'd like to make sure people understand?
Well, I have some practical advice. I love cooking, and the variety of kind of foods I missed a little bit. And so I wish I'd known this right from the beginning, because they've been so helpful. But there are 3 small appliances that really elevate healthy food. The first one is an air fryer. Have you heard of an air fryer? I
Yes.
use a lot of zucchini chips, squash, kale chips. Now I use it for Brussels sprouts or okra. So the air fryer really gives you a variety in texture.
A crunch.
A crunch.
Yeah.
It's worth the $50 or whatever it costs. The second one is the Instant Pot, which everyone knows about. So I won't say too much other than sweet potatoes and potatoes in the Instant Pot. I eat that at least once a day. Those have been so, so good. And then the third one is a Yo Nanas maker. And do you know that, Cliff? It's a device that takes frozen bananas and you just feed it through the tube and it crushes it out and becomes like soft serve. It has the mouthfeel of real ice cream, of soft serve ice cream. And so for me, my go-to dessert now is just to shake a bag of bananas and cinnamon and then push those through the bananas maker. And I have this amazing cinnamon ice cream that I can pour some warm cherries or some baked apples. And so when my family or when I'm with friends and everyone's having some sort of special treat, I have something that's really delicious. So that Yo Nanas maker is really worth it. So get the right tools, get those silicone baking pads, get a really good nonstick skillet. Just get the right tools if you can afford it. Cooking without oil is not that hard once you have the right tools.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah,
The Yo Nana. Wow. Okay, fantastic. It sounds ideal for our kids too. They would love to have something that replicates the ice cream without it.
Mix anything into it, so it's very, very versatile. But it's just bananas. It's really awesome.
Yeah.
But the other advice I would offer is the mental advice for me that's really gotten me through a lot of those social times, like when everyone's having a treat around me, is that I have to remember the long game. And for me, the long game is decades of healthy life with my family. So when I'm in those situations where, I'm in a restaurant and the only thing I can order is water and I'm with all my friends, I have to think this is a temporary, fleeting experience, and it does not weigh nearly as much as the decades of health and vibrant life that I see ahead of me. And so just to have that quickly in mind, like, nope, I want this life more. This weighs a lot more. And to then let that pass and still get the healthy life. That is my mental trick, is just remember the long game. And it plays right into your advice, which is really don't forget your compelling future.
Yeah. I love that. And I was just watching Arnold Schwarzenegger. He gave a talk and it was in front of a huge auditorium. And it was this year. I don't know where, but if someone Googles Arnold, the YouTube title is Arnold Schwarzenegger Talks Breaks the Internet or something silly like that. But he talks about how other people, when they were in the gym, he'd watch his competitors and so forth. They would be struggling and their faces grimacing. And he said every rep that he put in and every time he showed up to the gym, he was focused on his goal. He only focused on the goal. Why did he not get upset, or why did he actually enjoy going to the gym 5 hours a day? He said, because I was always focused on what I wanted to achieve, and it was a step closer to that goal. And so when you were talking about being at the restaurant and you're only having the water, but you think, you know what? My goal is long-term, decades and decades of health. And you're focused on that in that moment, not the fact that you're a little bit socially awkward and having to order the water, and focusing on that outcome, like he was talking about, focusing on winning all of his bodybuilding titles, is exactly the same thing. So the bigger picture, yeah. So that I'm the same. I think the same way, and I'll enjoy having a debate about, the foods on the table and stuff, and knowing that there's a big picture at play. There is a big picture, and it is a very, very big picture, isn't it? We are talking about decades of life here, and
pain. Or with no pain, if any.
Yes, that's right. And we're talking about such a worthy opponent in these diseases, whether it be ankylosing spondylitis or rheumatoid arthritis or whatever title. It's inflammation in the body, and it is a huge worthy opponent that deserves the ultimate respect. And we have to tread so carefully our whole lives. So. Any other comments that you'd like to share with us before we wrap this up?
Oh, well, I had one or two questions for you, if you don't mind.
Please. Love questions.
Well, I was wondering, I mentioned that it didn't go well with bell peppers and tomatoes. Maybe that was 4 or 5. What are, in your experience with other people, what are the odds that, in 2 years I would be able to eat that kind of tomatoes or bell peppers again?
I would say that if you keep doing what you're doing right now and you see 93% maybe creep to 94%, maybe creep to 95%, and it is diminishing returns, as you would have seen. You might get to 95% by 6 months from now. 93 to 95 might take 6 months, right? If you continue to see this this steady improvement, or at worst holding steady, I'd be surprised if you couldn't eat tomatoes and bell peppers in a year. Very surprised. I think that situation will resolve itself. And in this particular specific case, if not, well, is it really that big a deal? Tomatoes more so. It's handy to have tomatoes in because they're used, as in pastes. And they're a nice addition to so many meals. But look, there's worse things, and I'd expect that you should be able to tolerate them, and you should test them again. I'd wait 6 months. I'd wait 6 months and test them again. And test them in a small amount, just like a little here and there, because your reactions are so bad that I don't want to see a big reaction anymore. I want big reactions to be a thing of the past. So just a little tomato in 6 months, see, and if nothing, and wait your 48. You also you have a slow delay on the reaction, so you want to wait 3-4 days. Then see how you go.
Another question I had for you is, what about topical application of oil? Like, for example, essential oils.
Yeah, no problem. And not only no problem, but can be helpful. Yeah, can be helpful. As long as we don't put it into our mouth, we're fine.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah, my wife has a whole range of essential oils. She's quite into them. And she uses them on the kids and sometimes myself for various things, to avoid the onset of a cold if we've noticed that one of them has started to get a little bit of a leaky nose, and things like that. The kids love them. And, of course, Mum likes teaching them about the various benefits for each one and so on. So, yeah, essential oils are a part of our family. And Melissa loves them. And as long as they're not put into the mouth, they can go anywhere on the skin and they'll have no effect on what we're working towards.
That is just what I had hoped to hear. Thank you. And then the last question I had for you, I had a really nice moment with my family doctor when I went for a checkup with her. I guess it was about a month ago as well. And she asked me what I was doing. And when I started to tell her, she asked if I was on the Paddison Program. And she herself has been on the Paddison Program for rheumatoid arthritis because she has rheumatoid arthritis. So in that moment, looking at this woman who's my friend and my doctor, I just had this incredible empathy. We understood how hard it was, like nobody else. Unless you've done this program, you don't totally understand. And so from that moment and just how lovely that was, I wondered, do you guys ever have conferences, or is there events that ever bring people together?
It's something that I would love to do. Speaking, bringing people together, hearing stories, it's makes me very warm on the inside. It's my passion. I've been performing as a stand-up comedian for 18 years, so I got into that to break down a fear of public speaking. It's not something I ever wanted to do as a career stand-up comedy, but just as an aside, because I've never shared this, so just as an interesting point, because I like this topic, right? You've touched upon one of my favorite things, which is events and talking and things, right? So I got into stand-up because I was terrified of public speaking. I was in a high-tech startup company, and I had to go to Japan and present and I was only 23, and I was traveling to the States and Canada during the tech boom, and I was absolutely terrified. And so I didn't tell any of my work colleagues, but on the side I was going and doing stand-up because I thought that Toastmasters was boring, right? And they were old people, and I was 23, and I thought, hey, I'd prefer to be at a pub trying to tell jokes and break down the fear that way. So I got into that, and then I developed this passion for just communication and speaking, and I really enjoyed that, and I enjoyed watching people do that and the skill behind that. And so when I first told my story publicly, the story that ended up later, a few years later, I did as a TED Talk and so on, I found that very, very enjoyable. The sort of conveying in a live setting of, storytelling. It's a fabulous, it's the longest, most natural form of communication, for human history. And so anyway, I did the first event in Sydney where I had Dr. Clapper and myself come together, and we put on an event at a university. And this is going back now about 4 or 5 years, and we had 130 people sell out the small theatre at at a university in Sydney. And I just, it was fabulous. And then the feedback that I was getting, both myself and Dr. Clapper afterwards, people coming up, telling their stories. People had travelled from Adelaide, from Brisbane, from the places you don't know, but all over the country. Let's call it let's imagine that it's in the States, and people are coming from Los Angeles, New York, Boston, Montana, wherever, right? And I'm like, wow, we need to do more of this, all right? And the big plan, what I'd really like to do is, and of course we've done events now all over the place, across the States especially, is to do this more often, and also do some small group stuff, because people know my story. People can just watch my TED Talk, or they can listen to a 40-minute version of my story online. I mean, my story it can be watched online. Don't need to come to an event. But what I thought would be awesome, and this is what I'm hoping to do, is to do small, intimate, what I want to call intensive sessions, where I can sit down with 6 people at a time in a town, go from town to town, or a few towns over a weekend, and then come home again, and just get people together who just want to share, learn from me and each other, and spend 3 hours together, go over everything, come up with a strategy of what needs to be done, a plan, and then everyone can exchange details if they want, and then they can go away and implement the plan. So I believe that a plan for someone can be come up with in about under 10 minutes. So I can look at someone's situation and say, you got to get off that drug. You need to increase that drug to get off that drug. Or this is what I would do. I always say that first, only what I would do, right? Up to you. Your exercise needs to change because it's not effective enough. Those supplements are useless. Take these ones instead. You need some help, so either join our support platform or find someone who can be your buddy. Like you said, you need these tools. You've got to get a juicer. You've got to do that, blah, 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 blah. And, just a small amount of time can shift the needle and create a massive change of direction that can create a massive improvement in outcome in just a couple of months. So that's what I'm more passionate about, is creating massive change on a smaller scale, more of a small group stuff. I am planning on speaking at some of the larger events next year in the States. I'm waiting on confirmation from some of the more well-known plant-based events, and I'm really hopeful and excited that that will happen. And so some of Paddison Program folks can come to that, and I'll be at that and hopefully be able to meet people at that. Likewise, I'm speaking at an event in February, in just 6 weeks from now, actually hosting the conference there where Neil Bernard and some other big international plant-based doctors will be speaking at. So that's another opportunity to meet folks. But I guess I've kind of gone on answered this in a big roundabout way and haven't said, well, why don't we just, get together and stuff. But I need to put together some structure where I can cover the costs of travel with a huge caravan of family now. I mean, I got my wife and 3 little ones, and I mean, you know what it's like with 2 boys, and you add another one into the mix, and it's expensive for us to travel because, we also need to stay in accommodation where we can cook food.
Exactly. You need a kitchen.
Exactly. And so, and so if let's say, we all jump in airplane, which is a cost in itself, and then we go to a new city, we need a house. Like we need a 3-bedroom apartment or something. And Aiden, he's only 5 months old at the moment. And so we've got to, I'd love to, in the future, do more traveling, which I've really pulled back because of young family and so mostly young family, helping out because just Melissa and I with the 3 kids. And in the future, we do some more traveling, meet more people, get more people together, invite doctors to the events, put on presentations and so forth. But what I'm passionate about is making massive change at an event that goes over and above just teaching. Just teaching is, I feel like if people listen to every podcast that I've created, I feel like I've shared a lot that's in my head. I'm not holding anything back. There's not a lot that I have left to say, right? But everyone's personal story and situation, that's where you get so much variety. And that's where you can see someone can, make that one change and you'll be a different person in 3 months. But you need to hear it and be told and looked in the eye at close proximity and says, you must do this because you're not getting anywhere.
And even for me and my family, we felt like we were very healthy, vegetarian, exercising, but it's not enough. It has to be the right thing. You have to be doing the right thing. And unless you know that, you're floundering, or I was floundering. And so it felt like I got a map from you. This is how you get out of pain.
Yes.
But having that in a small group setting sounds really powerful because it's the directions that they need and the motivation to get started. So I agree, most people can probably gather from podcasts most of the information, but transformative change in those small groups, I think would be amazing. Any of this sounds amazing, by the way. So keep us updated. If you do the small groups or your conferences that you're presenting at, I'd love to hear you present and get to meet other people who are following the program.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we can certainly all correspond inside our support platform where you got a lot of wonderful feedback after you posted that great update. So one thing that I wanted to ask you, how's your doctor doing? How's your doctor doing with rheumatoid?
It was early on. So I want to loop back with her and get some more information.
Find out more information. Yeah, good.
So such a nice thing to hear her say that.
How about that? These things are happening more often, which makes me, get a little bit warm and fuzzy. To know that the doctor is doing it and the doctor's suggesting you do it, but you've done it and you feel tremendous. I mean, it's just, isn't it great?
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was so happy that she said that she knew what I was talking about because she's it too.
And what a great experience for her to see your transformation. It's so validating for what she's doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And she's still on some medication. So it's great.
Yeah.
Great to see someone down the road. Like with Cherie, I was able to see someone down the road. And that's so motivating and empowering.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Judith. It's been really, really fun chatting.
Before we go, I just wanted to say thank you to you and to Melissa. You guys have given me and my family a gift that is more valuable than anything money could buy. It is the difference between pain all day and having my kids just joyfully engage with me all day. And you've helped thousands of us do this. So I'm so grateful to you and to Melissa, because I know from having an incredibly supportive spouse that she is an essential part of this equation. So please give my best to her and deepest gratitude for all that you're doing. I just have to go on record saying thank you for this commitment that you've made to help other people. It's inspiring. It's awesome. And today was a huge honor to get to speak with you. I have seen all of the Paddison podcasts, by the way. So I know I'm among great company, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks so much, Judith. Your words mean so much, and I'll share that with Melissa. And you're absolutely right. She's the rock behind all of this, because without someone who is, solid and encouraging and relentlessly helpful and loving, it's so hard. It's very, very hard. So, yep, I'll go and give her a hug on your behalf, and I really, really appreciate those lovely words. And thank you for sharing your story and your fabulous tips. And keep up the awesome work. I'm so happy and so thrilled for you.
Oh, thank you so much. Have a Merry Christmas. Enjoy. Bye-bye.